All right. Hello and welcome to Just Animals podcast. I'm Elle, and with me, as always, is my dad, aka Guy.
Hello, Pod World. It's good to be
A
back.
Yeah, okay. And joining us today, we have another new zookeeper friend. We have Patrick joining us. Patrick, if you want to introduce yourself really quick to our listeners.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick. As Elle said before, I am a zookeeper, and currently I am looking over our central aquatic section at the zoo. So that includes animals in my care, I should say, are the American alligator, the black-footed penguin, the California sea lion, and the North American river otter.
Oh, all animals we love. I mean, we love every animal, obviously, but those are definitely in the top, on the list of some of our
So,
favorites.
Patrick,
No, wait, hold on.
is a river otter and a sea otter a different species?
Are you shitting me? Of course.
No, I'm
they
jumping
are.
right into it. He says
What do
he's
you
in
mean?
charge
You've
of the river
seen them?
otters.
They look different. One is
Yeah,
freshwater, one is
yeah.
salt. Are you kidding me?
I know, but it's not
are
like a
different
fish.
species.
Yes, it
It's
is.
not-
Oh, okay.
No,
You know
a fish
what?
has to live in its sea water or salt water or fresh water.
You
A fish
had
can't-
freshwater fish and saltwater fish. You know there's a
That's
very
correct.
distinct difference between the two. What do you mean?
Right, but an otter is a mammal, isn't it?
No kidding. So is a dolphin. What?
Yeah, but
Yeah, they are different species though. Just
okay, great.
to clarify, they are.
See?
They definitely have some rather large differences.
I mean,
Okay.
they look completely different too.
They
I
do
gotta
look very
look that
different.
up.
Yeah.
I gotta check that out.
All right. Anyways, really quick before you do that, for our animal today, we're gonna play Guy Guess That Sound, which we haven't played in a long time. Are you
Yes, we
listening?
true.
Stay
Yeah, I'm
focused.
listening. Ready. Focus. Are you playing it?
Yeah, I am. Sorry. I'm just doing it.
That's some kind of seal
Okay, close.
or sea lion.
There it is.
Hey, good guess.
What
Good guess.
specific sea lion, Reiner?
Well, the only ones that I'm familiar with are the West Coast ones.
Okay, okay, fine. Anyways, California sea lion is the animal of the day, which is something very near and dear to us. I grew up going to Pier 39 over in San Francisco. Doc K. I'm sure you may or may not talk about them in your keeper chat, Patrick. But
Yeah, for
over
sure.
at Doc K in the marina, and they're quite a sight
smelled
to
there.
see.
I've heard
Okay.
actually more about I guess Pier 39. You said.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always just hear Pier some number.
Yeah,
and
Pier 39.
The issues and problems they're having just because
Yes.
the mass amounts that congregate there.
Yeah, so
Right.
it'll be every dock will be full, and then sometimes you'll go and they'll maybe be like 20, and then
And wait,
Yeah.
not only that, they get on people's boats and such.
okay, well, you know what? The boat is
Right.
in their environment, so
I
that's kind
understand.
of on them. Anyways,
I
so we'll
understand.
let Patrick kind of get into this since this is his wheelhouse. Do you know their scientific name, Patrick? Could you share that
Yeah,
with us?
so I do. The scientific name for the California sea lion is the Xalophus californianus. I hope I'm
Ooh,
pronouncing that right.
fancy. I like
Yeah,
that.
so it even has California in the scientific name as well. And I like that.
Me too. What is
I like when
Xalophus?
scientific names are familiar. At
Yes,
least.
right. Yeah, like California,
Zalophornis?
I can guess what that is.
Zalophus?
You're not
Zalophus.
saying I.
Xalophus.
Californius.
Californius. Yeah.
All right.
So,
So, Patrick,
stop.
sea lion versus a seal. Let's start there.
It's so funny that you want to start there because I would say that it's like the most common question I get for sure. Like, what's
Well,
the
I'm
difference
pretty
between
base. I'm pretty
a
base. Go
seal and
ahead.
sea lion? So definitely I think the easiest difference if they're on land, if they're not in the water, um, and I'll kind of get into this more later, but sea lions belong to a group of animals called pinnipeds, which I'll explain. Well, it means flipper-footed, essentially.
Okay.
So locomotion on land is very particular between seals and sea lions. Sea lions have those hind flippers that they can kind of push forward and then
Right.
use as feet to walk around, to where seals don't have that. And so they are more of the inchworm type movement and a lot of rolling and bouncing and lunging to move. So that's a big difference. Another really easy to spot difference is the sea lions actually have the outer ear flaps.
Yeah.
So they
That's
have
right.
external ear flaps to where seals do not. They have flush, I think, just like ear hole type coverings. And sea lions are also much, much more vocal than seals.
Oh,
Sea lions
interesting.
are chatty, chatty, chatty compared to seals. So those are the three biggest difference. You're also going to get size and appearance differences, but if you're not super keen on that kind of stuff, then it might not be. I think that's kind of where the mix up happens anyways. They look pretty similar, so people are like, what's the difference kind of deal.
Yeah, especially when they're swimming in the water and like
Do
the
they
sea lion's fins are
Yeah.
streamlined in the back. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell
Yeah, totally.
when
Yeah.
they're like, and doing like a mermaid tail in the back.
Right.
So
Yeah. If
no,
they're in the water, I think the easiest, if you don't know
right.
just the differences just off the top of your head, the external ear flaps tend to give it away.
Okay.
And on the seals, their hind flippers tend to be a bit more rear focused and
Hmm.
streamlined because they never have that need to like move them forward, to
Gotcha.
where sea lions have that like very right angle type like bone dichotomy in the back of their hind
Sure,
flippers.
sure.
So,
Okay. So what's the
but still
average
hard to tell.
right, yeah. So what's the average size of California sea lion males and females? I mean, from what I've seen there is you can definitely tell the big bull
Oh
versus
yeah,
the
yeah. So
female.
California sea lions are extremely sexually dimorphic. That's
Oh,
what
we
it's
know that
called.
word. We know that
Right,
word.
we've had
Right.
that word before.
Yeah, yeah. So essentially, all that means in layman terms is that there's a big difference in size between males and females in the species, and the males, the California sea lion males, can grow from anywhere 8 to 9 feet long and weigh a massive 1,100 pounds.
Oh, that's a lot of sea lion.
That's a
Okay.
lot of sea lion.
Wow.
Also, my favorite feature on the males that I always love to bring up is they have a very large sagittal crest.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that because I was like they
Oh,
all have that.
Poncho. Poncho.
We're gonna talk about Poncho later. Wait on Poncho. But yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna ask you like what is that bump that like on the top of their heads that they seem
Yeah,
to
so
have?
it's believed to be specifically just a mating attribute. Specifically,
Oh,
just
okay.
so essentially like a non-functioning sex organ almost.
Ah, okay.
It's big. It's for to impose on other males, to
Okay.
attract females. Essentially, I got a big crest. I'm the big dog.
Oh,
Is that like a sea
mm.
um,
lion kink thing? Is that what we're getting at
yeah,
here? Sea
maybe,
lion
maybe,
fetish thing? Ooh, look at that sagittal crest.
yeah. And
That's why your mother picked me.
and the females, however, are like if you hear the male size, you would expect like a little smaller, half the size, but
Right.
they're actually, as far as weight goes, so they can be like 6 to 7 feet long max, typically closer to the like 6.5 range. I'd say somewhere in between there, and
Okay.
they only typically weigh like mid to low 200s, so like 200 to 250 pounds. So there's a very, very big
That's
weight difference
huge.
there.
And
Yeah.
that big old 1,100-pound thing is getting on top of them to mate. Fast.
Wow.
No,
Yeah.
I mean they're
Yeah.
not getting smushed. I mean,
Yeah.
come
They're pretty resilient. I feel bad for them.
oh god, those poor things. And then
Right.
in the wild, like, what's their lifespan versus? And obviously, most things we've noticed or most animals tend to live a little bit longer in captivity, with the exception of a few. I
Right.
gather, is it the same for sea lions?
Yeah, it is. It is the same for sea lions. Typically, in the wild, their lifespan is going to be 20 years max, roughly. There's been a few recorded individuals, like you said, exceptions, um, that have gone longer than that. And then in captivity, the max tends to be around the 25 to 30-year range. So
Oh,
they do
okay,
gain that
wow,
extra time in captivity usually.
sure,
I'd say 30 years in captivity would be kind of the upper echelon of age range.
okay,
Well, I have a
wow.
question for you. I'm looking at a map from NOAA,
Hmm.
and the geographic range of these California sea lion, it goes like all the way to Canada, the beginning of Canada, all the way down to Baja, Mexico, Cabo, and up the Sea of Cortez. That's a lot of difference
That
in
is, yeah,
temperature. And
yeah.
do they stay in their zone, or are they flexible in terms of where they can go?
I mean,
So
are they
they
migratory?
actually have, I believe it's 3 or 4 different. Um, I don't know the word they use to describe it, so I'm just going to say populations.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
As in, there's 3 to 4 different like groups there of
Yeah.
sea lions, because it's not like a sea lion that typically stays in Baja California is traveling up to
British Columbia.
Vancouver all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not migratory in that aspect usually to that degree.
Gotcha.
Males do have a period that we can get into later about like after breeding season they tend to travel north, but it's still not those kind of distances.
Oh,
So
this is
they
what I'm sorry for interrupting. This is what you were
yeah,
trying
go
to
ahead.
say. That it's called breeding stocks. United States,
Stocks, yes,
Western Baja
that's
California, and Gulf of Columbia, California. So
correct.
that's what they call it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you have those 3 to 4 breeding stocks that are spread out over that vast
Right.
range there. So the breeding stock in that's outside, Baja is going to sure have slight minor differences between the breeding stock off the coast of California, for instance,
Yeah.
or in Canada. However, they're still the same species, and so the range is included all in one. But yeah, they do range from, I'd say, Baja California to, I think, central Mexico is kind of like the southern range limit, and then
Yeah.
Vancouver up into
Right.
southeast Alaska
Yeah.
is kind of like the northern range
Question,
limit.
and I
Yeah,
gather you've probably felt them. I always like to ask this because I'm a big touch person.
yeah.
What do they feel like, wet versus dry?
Okay, so it's pretty simple to describe, I think. They have a very short fur coat.
Okay.
And so when wet, to me, it always feels like it's a weird sensation to describe, but like a fake leather, like a pleather type feeling, like fur
Oh,
feeling. If you were
okay.
to get that wet, almost,
Sure,
I
sure.
think, and then when dry, it's almost just like a very short furred dog.
Okay.
If you've ever felt something that had like super short fur like
It's
that,
like a pit bull
um,
with that short coat, or like a pointer.
kind of the water resistance of their fur does give it a bit more of a glossier feel than like the matteness of like a terrestrial animal. But
Sure, sure.
yeah, I would say it's comparable.
Okay, and they've got blubber, correct?
Yeah, they do have a layer of fat. I don't know if it's necessarily classified as blubber per se. I probably something I should know, but I will always just admit when I don't know something off the top of my head,
Fair enough.
That's nice of you.
rather than give
Right.
false information. So
No,
I'm not
You
completely
can fake
sure.
it. We don't know any different.
that's true. So what's then their ideal water temperature? I mean, granted, there's very, I mean, even in California, like the water up in Humboldt versus the water down in San Diego is probably at least a 10-degree difference as is. And
Right.
so what's their
Yeah.
ideal temperature range then?
That's really hard to pinpoint because, like you said, the range that they live in is so vast, and
Right.
it's also a range that isn't necessarily the same year round. Like
Sure,
they
sure.
do, it is a very changing of temperatures. Um, so I know, for instance, here I can actually look and tell you the temperature of the water from our
Oh yeah.
exhibit today.
Right. Or what, yeah, what's their temperature, the sea lions that you look after? What is
Let
their ideal
me look
temperature?
if I can find it. Here we go. Yeah, so we have ours at around 51 degrees
Oh,
Fahrenheit.
that
That's
sounds like
about where it
California
is like in
water.
the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty on
and
brand.
it's pretty like I'm not even. I know in the winter we keep it temperature controlled, but typically during the summer months and stuff like that, I don't think the indoor is temperature controlled as far as water goes. So it's just a pretty like moderate to outside, whatever the water temperature may be.
Okay, very
Okay,
cool.
I have a bizarre question for you, and if you don't know the answer,
Oh
is fine.
boy. Can you go in the
I'm
order of
looking
the
at
outline,
again
please?
NOAA fisheries,
Uh
and
huh.
and they have a marine mammal stock assessment report by species. So I suspect this is some type of census of the animal, and I'm not sure how they send out counters unless they're previously tagged. I mean, do you have any clue how this assessment is works?
So I would imagine the easiest way to get any kind of assessment on a breeding stock for a sea lion would be during the breeding season. Because specifically how sea lions go about breeding is they congregate in massive rookeries.
Ah,
So
okay.
Right.
during the breeding season, I'm sure that you could get good data points on, because like a majority of the population is going to come to shore,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes at around the same time. Um, and they stay there for, especially like the males will try to stay on the beach for as long as possible. So it's the females that kind of go on and off. Um, I would imagine that it's probably that kind of stuff, probably using drone footage and then taking like, okay, a square mile, how many sea lions are in this square mile, and then expand upon that kind of thing. If it's any more detailed than that, then I don't know. If
Okay.
there's some kind of like very specific, like they are actually counting heads out there,
Yeah.
then I'd be impressed. But
Okay.
I that's something that I definitely
Well,
don't know the
while you're
details
talking,
of.
I'm going to look at the California sea lion.
Okay, here, do
It
that.
was the
Okay.
2018 was the last report. Stock definition geographic. So I'm going to peruse this and
Okay, good. You
Yeah.
see
peruse that. Anyways,
how they're doing
as in
this.
regards to water, well, you got the temperature, but are they, kind of more coastal? Will they do they like being out in the open water, or do they mix of both, or where's their preferred area or depth?
So, it is a mix of both. I will say with a
Okay,
preference to shallows. They're very much
sure,
a where the food is
gotcha,
um, type animal. It's all about food availability.
sure.
That defines so much of their behavior in general. They definitely can go out to sea. They can go out to sea up to 2 weeks even.
Oh wow.
Especially if it's the type of season where there might be massive schooling fishes out at
Hmm.
sea. Like if there's just good food availability there, they have the ability and they won't pass up the opportunity.
Okay,
Other than that, they probably spend their time perusing and foraging shallow waters. The continental shelf is
sure,
oftentimes where I think a ton of stuff feeds there.
right,
So just that very normal like type behavior of following the
right,
food, really.
right. So then, speaking of food, what is it in their diet? And then for your fit, for your not your fit. Oh my god, not your fish. For your sea lions, what do you typically feed them, and do they have any favorite foods?
Missouri.
Quiet you.
Definitely we like herring, squid,
Ah, herring. Maybe they're
hake.
Jewish, Dad.
Those are all going to be big ones, and it's we feed them the same at
Okay.
our, and I would say they definitely like the big herring fish more than any other fish that we feed.
Okay, that's like their go-to. Like, okay, I'll
Oh
do some
yeah,
stuff for this herring fish
and
here.
I don't know if it's just because the volume, like it's just a bigger fish typically, or
Sure.
they like, and they're so unique in what they like as well. Like and just the time of the year. Sometimes they really like the squid more,
Oh,
and
okay.
sometimes I really should see like the time of the year depending on what fish my
And
animals
their
are liking
preferences.
more. Yeah,
Right.
I should see if it correlates with any like I don't know data
Seasonal
of
availability.
the hair. Yeah, yeah. See if there's any correlation there, but
Will they like crustaceans like snails and crabs?
yeah, sometimes they've been known to eat clams, I think, and stuff like that. But once again, I think that would come down to just an availability thing. Like
Sure. It's
I
like bottom
think
of the
it would
list.
be, yeah, if it's there, like knowing sea lions, it's probably like if it's less work than a herring at any given moment, they'll probably go for it. But if not, the fish is probably just easier. But they
Well,
Gotcha.
definitely
here's
have been known to eat those sort of things.
Okay.
here's an interesting fact from my report.
From your
Sure.
It's
report.
this is under the habitat concern section, and it says exposure to anthropogenic sound may impact individual sea lions. Experimental exposure of captive California sea lions to simulated mid-frequency sonar and acoustic pingers resulted in a wide variety of behavioral responses, including increases in respiration, refusal to participate in food reward tasks, evasive hauling out, and prolonged submergence.
That
I
sounds
didn't
like
even
torture.
know. Huh?
That sounds like torture. Like they're like what is it, like sea lion
Well,
Guantanamo Bay?
Well, I didn't know that they were having these issues because of sound, but mid-frequency sonar.
Everything
It's
in the ocean is having an issue with sounds.
yeah.
Yeah, they're not any different in that regard, where they have, you know, very high frequency hearing capability underwater. Like they have very sensitive hearing to that stuff. So I and those responses that it sounds like it's triggering are like distress responses, like
Oh
the
no.
hauling out stuff, the alarm responses, the submergence, like that kind of thing. It makes sense, that if they are reacting negatively to it, not wanting to um, participate in food reward behavior, that kind of stuff. It usually means some sort of distress sign or some sort of they're not too happy sign. So
So, like I
yeah,
said,
I could
sea
definitely
lion.
see sonar affecting that.
So sea lion Guantanamo Bay. I hope they only did that experiment for a little bit. Poor things.
Yeah,
And then speaking of behavior, let's get into that. So I mean, obviously, I mean, seeing them at Pier 39, they're obviously very social animals. I mean, you'll see them haul out and just
yeah,
flop on top of each other, and then you'll gradually, as they're whoever they flopped on, will start screaming, and then they're all screaming at each other, and then
yeah,
they're
yeah.
pushing each other off the dock and fighting to get on the docks, and it seems like there's definitely a pecking order, and but they also just don't seem to care. They're going to just scream in each other's faces. That's kind of just who they are.
I think you put it in great, no uncertain terms. They definitely are very social animals, and oftentimes it definitely seems like a lot of bickering, a lot of like I want to be the one that lays on top,
Right.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, those barks and grunts are all just forms of like how they communicate with each other, and yeah, they definitely like to lounge around in groups. It's probably a safety thing as well, you know, safety
Sure.
in numbers. um, and especially the females, like you just find hordes of them just laying all over each other. And even our girls at our zoo, they always are laying on each other up on the beach and stuff. And it is funny. So our I would call her the top of our, because we have a full grown female and then two juveniles. And
Ah,
so the
okay.
full grown female runs the show at the
Of
time, and
course. Of
she
course.
definitely lets it be known when the juveniles have annoyed her enough. And it usually is barkings and like some false lunges and stuff, pretty much like,
Oh,
hey, get off me.
sounds like
Right.
my wife.
Oh,
Patrick,
that's
have you have any
pretty
clue
funny.
in terms of how long they can stay submerged?
Yeah, so from what I know, they can stay submerged up to I want to say 10 minutes. I kind of forget the length of the max time, because typically they don't push it like that. Like
Oh, wow.
any
Okay.
animal that has the a max time of how long it can stay underwater, like you always hear facts about, whatever animal can stay underwater for this long.
Right.
Typically, not always the case. The animals aren't going to push it like that.
Right.
they're
Yeah.
they're not competing, so
Right.
usually they're very like uh purposing. I always forget how to say this word. It confuses me. Essentially, they go up and out of the water, back down head first. Purposing, I think. Anyway, um, they're very playful. They're up and out of the water, back into the water a lot. Like they not aren't necessarily like huge stay underwater all the time type animals. So I really
Okay.
doubt they're pushing that 10 minutes, unless running from a predator or on
Sure.
a hunt, desperation sort of thing.
So speaking of that, I mean, is would it be fair to say that they're the dogs of the sea?
I think very much so, yeah. Especially if you take care of them. The uniqueness of their personalities feels very similar to dogs.
Right. Okay.
Just like if past experience, like meeting dogs and stuff like that, and taking care of dogs, just being around dogs, and then you're around sea lions, and you're like, wow, these personalities are very similar. They have very different
Okay.
ranges of intelligence, I would say, but the
Okay.
personality aspect um, definitely feels very uniquely doggish for each sea lion,
Sure.
because each sea lion I've ever met also always has very unique personality traits and quirks and like
Sure.
that sort of thing.
That's pretty funny. So, yeah,
So,
so that being said, kind of digging into their personalities a little bit, when they see you, since it sounds like you're one of their main carers, do they respond to you? Will they come, I guess, flippering over to you or flopping over to you, or they're like, "Oh,
it's
Patrick's here. Okay, he's our guy's
it's more
here."
like It depends on the time. So if they
Sure.
know it's not food time, then
Oh,
it's just
then
purely curiosity, just to see
right. Like,
what
what are you
I'm
doing?
doing in the back, which is they know is just cleaning essentially. So they come back, looks, check, see what I'm doing. Hey, you're not here to harm me, and then they forget about me after like 15 seconds. But if it's food time, then it's a very
Oh,
different story. Yeah,
oh, I
then
bet.
they are very very excited, very yeah, a lot of like anticipation. They sea lions when they're excited, they do a lot of rocking. They do a lot of back and forth like
Ah,
excitement type deal. So
like Ray
they get that
Charles.
behavior going right away
That's
as soon as
amazing.
food
That's so
time's up.
cute.
Yeah,
Oh, that
yeah,
is so
very.
cute how they're rocking. Because, in some animals, that rocking is like a distress thing, like bears, or most
Yeah.
animals, like the rocking is not usually something good. So it's nice to know that
Yeah,
rocking
it
sea
can.
lions is
I guess it
happy.
can be depending on the context.
Sure,
With
sure,
sea lions, it definitely could be like a stress thing.
sure.
But when it's food time, it's definitely an excitement thing, a
Right.
lot
Like,
of
oh,
like
he's got
head
the
bobbing.
bucket.
Yeah, yeah, like come on, throw the fish.
And then how trainable are they? I mean, granted, they obviously seem very food motivated like a dog. Are they highly trainable since it sounds like they are highly intelligent too?
Right. So, I've been with my zoo for about a year now.
Okay.
So I am actually still like, I don't train the sea lions every day. A couple of the more experienced keepers do.
Sure.
However, I will get there, hopefully.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
but so I can speak on what I've learned from them or
Sure.
know, but I don't train them every day. Anyway,
Okay.
they do a lot of target training. So
Ah,
they're
okay.
very good at that. Like, you know, hold out a stick with a red target on it. They
Sure.
know to touch their nose to it, or with a vocal command like flipper or something, they know to
Oh,
put their
cool.
flipper up to it. That kind of thing. They're very good with, yeah, like I said, like vocal commands, as well as a couple of our girls will like play fetch with things.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
then a lot of the behaviors that we train actually serve multiple purposes. So
Sure.
not only entertainment for the crowd or to show off some of their behaviors, but also for medical reasons.
Oh,
So
sure. That
like
makes sense.
they will hold open their mouth for us so we can, check their teeth. They will
Sure.
hold still for eye drops. Um,
I draw. Oh, okay. Is
right.
there's like sea lion pink eye or?
So, in a zoo type setting, because of like water treatment and stuff,
Oh, sure, sure,
and
sure,
the chemicals and stuff, sometimes their eyes can get a bit cloudy. So they just
sure.
have an eye drop that makes sure it just clears up that cloudiness like right away. It just keeps their eyes healthy and good. Just because it's a water environment that is not the ocean is
Sure.
always going to be less stable. So we're constantly having to make changes to it
Sure.
to
Sure.
keep it stable. And those
Sure.
changes are chemicals essentially, and perfectly safe for the sea lion. It just can cause a bit of cloudiness.
Sure.
And so the eye drops just help clean that up.
Wow. And they'll hold their eye open like, all right, put my drops in.
Oh yeah, yeah. They
Wow,
know
that
they
is
they
very
get fish for
exciting
it,
and cool.
so it's worth.
Patrick, are facilities that have marine mammals or life, are they allowed to suck out ocean water and return it to the ocean, or do you have to make water?
No, no, no. Yeah, a big part of every keeper or person, aquarist that takes care of marine animals. Um, okay, I guess I can't speak actually on facilities that are on the ocean. However, I would
Ah,
imagine it's a no-no
yeah,
anyway, because like I said, that the ocean is such a very like it's a completely different ecosystem, right? It's a completely different
sure.
system than whatever they've made in their facility, and so with how sensitive water can be, pumping it from a different ecosystem into yours or pumping it from yours into a different ecosystem, it's just going to not work most
Yeah, it's not
times,
going to
really.
balance it
Okay,
out.
so let's talk about
Yeah.
this for a second, because when I had saltwater fish,
Oh
I
my
had a
Hmm.
god.
55-gallon drum, and I
Doesn't
would buy a
care.
bag of salt. Well, I got a box of salt that had 5 bags in it, but I would
It was
make
a
a
box of
55
salt back.
gallon drum at a time, and I
Yeah.
would dump the salt into the water, and then I'd have this drill that stirred it up, and then I'd
Okay.
pump it into the tank. But I had 110 or 120-gallon tank. You have 1,000-gallon tanks. So
Right.
tell us about how you're making water.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's as simple as your 55-gallon drum process.
Just on a larger scale.
Larger.
Multiply it by a lot. Yeah, we have at the main aquarium in our facility, we have two, I believe, 2,500-gallon tanks that
Wow.
we cycle water between, and yeah, essentially like twice a shift somebody's making salt water.
Wow.
And that's for the aquarium. We have our own saltwater processing making tanks on the mammal side of things as well for their saltwater. The only thing that uses salt water at our facility, though, is, or in the mammal facility, is the sea lions. The penguins and the river otters both have fresh water. So
Oh,
Speaking of salt
wow.
water, did you hear about that tank that in Germany that exploded?
yeah, that
Oh,
was
yeah.
crazy. That
I
is
I
insane.
I think it had like when I converted the liters to gallons and then I multiplied the gallons by 8 and it was like 254,000 pounds. It was some amazing amount of water weight in that thing.
Right.
And
Yeah, an
uh,
astronomical amount.
yeah, but they had like 1,500 fish and I don't know if any survived, but
I
ooh,
think what
mom.
they would have been super lucky for there, all I could think about is that they were very lucky that it happened in the middle of the night.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of water. Oh my God.
If there were people, because like where that tank is, it is just like in the main, like it in typically during the day there's a ton of people around there and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
were
I
very
think it's
lucky that.
by registration area.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
are you
no, it's right in
involved
the
in the
center of the
water
building.
making or you don't mess with that?
Oh no, yeah, no, I definitely, everyone's involved in that. It is um mixing the salt water can be a bit of a laborious process, because we put the bags of salt in ourselves and stuff. It's nothing too terrible, really, but yeah, everyone helps with that, so I'm definitely involved.
So you must be using like 50-pound bags of salt or something.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, I
And
think
and
that's actually precisely what it is.
and then do you have a giant rotating thing to like a to mix
Well,
it up?
so we have the two large 2,500-gallon holding tanks of salt water, and then there's a small separate. I think it's just like 400, maybe. I don't know the size of it's the mixing tank essentially. So we pour the bags of water in there, we mix it ourselves with mixers, two
Oh
people
my
do,
goodness. Yeah.
and then that gets pumped into the holding tanks. I'm sure larger facilities probably have self-mixing stuff and they just have to dump the salt in, but it also maybe not, though, just because it is kind of like a, if you need to add this much salt, or you can add a little at a time to see how it is affecting it, kind of thing. So I'm not sure, but that's how it works at our facilities. So we mix the salt separately in a like smaller tank, and then it gets put into the holding tank and where
Hmm.
it is. Yeah.
I had
So,
this
okay.
device. I think I don't remember the
No one
specific
cares
name of
about
it, but it
water.
measured the specific gravity of the water to tell
Right.
you what the salt concentration is.
Salinity content.
Yeah.
What's that,
So,
Ellen?
salinity.
No, not
Salinity.
it's yeah, but I think it's
But
specific
there's
gravity is what
right.
it's
Yeah.
measuring.
Yeah. Correct.
So,
So do
hold
you
on.
check that
Sidebar.
before you dump it into the holding tanks before you release it, or you have the
Yeah.
formula down pretty much?
No, we have it. I think a mixture of both, but it definitely gets checked. We have like automatic readers and stuff that we don't have to, like, when I was in college and taking care of tanks, I used
Oh,
just like a handheld thing that
yeah,
you like
yeah,
made sure all the air bubble was held up to the light, all that fun stuff. But now we just have fancy automatic readers that we stick a stick in and it gives
right.
us those numbers. So
Oh, you have
On average, how
it's
much
much
constant
do
more
they?
measuring.
reliable, right?
Yeah.
How much do they sleep, or will they like take turns sleeping? Someone's on lookout, someone's asleep.
When they're not, uh, I I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think throughout the day how much I see the girls napping. They definitely can be nappers during the day. I think through the hottest parts of the day, I usually catch them up on the beach napping. And then through that, it just depends because they sleep in so many different ways and times and functions. So they can sleep floating in the water
Oh, no
or
kidding.
lounging on the beach. Yeah, seeing them sleeping in the water, like resting in the water is the funniest thing. They float up at the top of the water with their
Okay.
nose straight up just out of the water, and they just float there at the top, and it's
That's
great.
crazy. So they're like a little pendulum in the water. See, I would be like, okay, I think the sea lion is dead, and now we have an awkward situation here at the zoo.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it looks dead, or like it looks dead. Has anyone
It's
ever
really
come up
cute
to
to
you
see.
and been like, I
Usually
think a sea
usually
lion's dead?
they don't do that sort of sleeping if there's a lot of people around. I've noticed that that's kind of a thing that it's like seems to be reserved for when there's not many people about, when
Sure.
it's a
Okay.
slower day at the zoo.
Okay, that makes sense. Like, yeah, that's wow. That's so cool.
Just
They
to
can just sleep in the
educate
water.
our audience, the device that I was talking about is called a sea hydrometer, and then what Patrick was talking about was the salinity refractometer or
Oh wow. Okay,
refractometer.
great. Anyways,
Refractometer,
back
yeah.
to the sea.
Don't
So
have
are
to use
they?
those anymore, which is nice.
I have a question. I've seen seals do this. I don't know if sea lions do, but like you'll see like them obviously open up their nostrils and close them, and then and whatnot. Do
Yeah,
sea lions?
the like flaring of the
Right, and
nostrils.
they're really open. Like you feel like you can see into their sinus cavity. Do sea lions
Yeah.
do that where they really open their nostrils and
Yeah,
close them?
absolutely. So smell is a really large part of communication in sea lions as well.
Ah, okay.
So like I'm sure it has a lot to do with that. Um, I actually don't know if there's any behavioral stuff or if there's any signs of like aggression or anything like that with the flared nostrils. If
Hmm.
there is, it's probably in combination with other things.
Sure.
However, I do know that yeah, it probably is just related to the fact that their sense of smell is very important, especially
Hmm.
between things like mother and pup.
Ah,
Scent is very important. Stuff like territory type stuff. Just yeah, it's a just a big part of their communication. So
speaking of mother and pup and territory, so are they pack animals or are they solitary? I mean, from what I know, it seems like they like to hang out with each other even when they're squawking in each other's faces.
right. So earlier I kind of mentioned how they're super food motivated animals,
Sure.
super like availability of food is big for them. And that plays into this sort of behavior as well. So if there's more food, if there's a ton of schooling fish, if there's a ton of food in the area, they're going to be in bigger groups. If there's
Gotcha.
not a ton of food, they'll be in smaller groups. So the group sizes, especially when hunting and like just traveling together kind of thing, is going to
Hmm.
depend on food availability,
Hmm.
as well as the season, because breeding season makes things a bit funkier.
Sure.
They tend to be in bigger groups during breeding season, I kind of mentioned before. But yeah, so
Sure.
that kind of varies. So I would say for the most part, you probably won't find too many solitary sea lions, especially
Sure.
for any sort of like permanent amount of time.
Sure.
Um, even males during the non-breeding season, I think, will travel in smaller groups. I think with the predators of the sea lion, it's just not very smart or beneficial for them to travel
Sure.
solitary for
Right. No,
large
that
amounts of time.
yeah, absolutely. And then
How do they
speaking
get
of
along with seals,
what
or do they not get along with
is
seals?
there sea lion on seal crime we have to worry about?
No, no, no. They actually a lot of times exp- breeding season's a bit different.
Sure.
I don't know if you can tell yet, but breeding season makes these type of animals, pinnipeds, quite crazy.
Yes.
Um, but
And other animals.
during the non-breeding season, they've been seen interacting and behaving with, the elephant seals, stellar sea lions, all those other kind of breeds that are around in their range, pretty much like they would their own. Um, the behaviors there are fine. They've been seen like they don't necessarily lay all over each other like they would, but their groups can coincide essentially. They
They
tolerate
can
each other for
cohabitate.
sure.
Actually, speaking of that, if I remember correctly, I believe at the Aquarium of the Pacific, the seals and the sea lions actually like share a tank.
Yeah,
And so I feel maybe in the captive setting, and I could be talking out of my butt here, but it seems to be kind of common that like since they can cohabitate in nature, why not in
right.
the
Yeah,
captive or
yeah. I've seen
managed
that
care
at
setting?
facilities here as well. We just don't have any. I think it's a fine thing. I'm sure during the breeding season,
Right, they might
especially
separate them.
if they have males and females. It just depends. I'm sure they're like the facilities are smart about it and stuff. But I would not be surprised if they had a little bit of kerfuffles between
Sure.
between them
Kerfuffles.
during
All
that
right.
time.
Right.
Um, However, I will say that they are pretty like they're not a very like let's fight to the death for breeding territory type thing. If an elephant seal is bigger than a sea lion and it imposes itself at the sea lion, more often than not the sea lion's just going to back down.
Ah, okay, interesting to know.
So it's yeah.
And then speaking of communication, so obviously they bark and and grunt and whatnot. What other kind of communication? It also sounds like smell and then posturing. But what other kind of communication can we expect from a
Right.
sea lion?
So besides that, I think maybe check my notes to see if I've left anything. Yeah, I think something cool to talk about is like territorial behaviors
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
from males can be kind of interesting. So with the males, when they're setting up their territories in these giant rookeries,
Hmm.
and a rookery is essentially just a part of a beach where a mass group of sea lions has gathered to
Sure,
breed. And these males will carve out essentially territories in this rookery and then
gotcha,
defend those territories, and because
gotcha.
their objective is to mate with all the females
Sure,
in their territory.
sure.
And some of the behaviors we'll see from them are essentially like opening their mouths as wide as possible and letting out these
Oh,
loud barks. And actually how the sea lion got its name is believed to be from these some of these sounds the males make during this breeding time, because they sound like
Ah,
the
like
oh,
they're
roars of
roaring.
lions. Exactly.
Mm,
okay,
okay.
um
okay.
and so the males get real vocal, real loud during the breeding season. Lots of posturing, a lot of like they call it false lunging, or so essentially just like quick, like big, like multiple step like lunges at opposition to try to like this is my territory, these are the bounds kind of thing.
Right.
um yeah, so I think that's the only other types of communication I kind of left out, besides the, yeah, like I said, lots of barking, whining, and then I guess underwater communication.
Oh, yeah.
They do communicate underwater using like buzzes and clicks, and like
Oh,
kind of
interesting.
communicate in a sort of way that a lot of other marine life does underwater as
Yeah,
well.
the clicking seems kind of
Right.
like, dolphins click. I'm sure
Right.
other marine mammals click. I just can't think of any
Do
right now, but
do the babies hang out in? Uh,
well, let's just go into breeding then. Let's go into breeding. When is this
Okay.
formidable breeding season where, the testosterone's really going, the bulls are really rip roaring, ready to
Yeah.
throw
So
down?
their breeding season actually is a pretty decent chunk of time. It's during the summer, so from May to August.
Oh, wow, okay.
Um, yeah.
That is a long
And
time.
so essentially, one of the coolest or funniest facts I think about the breeding season. So, like I said, all the sea lions kind of gather to these rookeries,
Sure.
and the male's goal is carve out as much territory as possible, try to get females to stay and breed with me in these territories. Now, sometimes males are really successful at that, and they can breed with, a lot of females over these periods. Some males aren't as successful and only, breed a couple pups.
Sure.
Um, and what I think is so crazy about this is the males actually fast during this period. They do
Wow.
not go out and eat at all
interesting.
because they, I guess, uh, to make sense of that, um, they try to stay on the rookery for as long as possible, because that will give them the highest chance of successfully breeding. If they
Got
never
it.
leave the beach, as the females come and go and pass through the territories and stuff, they have the greatest opportunity. So the males
Oh, that
completely
makes sense.
fast and only focus on breeding. And they can
Wow.
stay in the rookeries for up to like a month. So like a month of fasting and trying to breed with the other
Oh,
sea
wow.
lions.
No,
Yeah.
that's some serious business for them then if they're going a
Right.
month without
So
food.
then the pups, as you kind of mentioned, once the pups do come about, they stay on shore with the mother for, I think the mother stays there for about 7 to 10 days at first, and then the mothers will go out to sea to get more food and stuff so they can provide milk for the pups. And the pups tend to congregate in what is called nurseries,
Ah,
um,
okay.
on the rookeries while this is happening. And the pup can actually, I think, be on nursing from the mother, I think, for up to a year, maybe 2. I'm not
Oh, wow.
super, but I know a year is for sure, but it might be longer than that. So they do nurse for quite a while. Um, and yeah, they kind of stay on shore during these nurseries. And that is, if you've ever watched any Nat Geo docs on sea lions, they always have some dramatic scene of some pup
Yes.
getting lost from the nursery and some. So yeah, that is when the pups are at their most vulnerable, is when they're in those nurseries up in the rookeries, just because there's so many of them.
And then how big are they when they're born? I gather they're at least what, like 20 pounds?
Yeah, I'd say I don't have any specific numbers on that. I've never actually taken care of any pups or even seen any in person, but I would imagine, yeah, that 20 pound range sounds right. Only like, a 2 to 3 feet long, probably less than that, a foot to 2 long. I'm
Okay.
not super confident on that answer.
Yeah, no worries. So their vision, I gather, is probably pretty good. Probably pretty good. Would you say they're more sight or smell or sound dominated or a mixture of all three?
Man, yeah, that's hard to say, because if you look at a sea lion's head, all of these sensory, these all these olfactory organs are so prominent. Like they have the
Right.
big, large snout,
Right.
with
And those
the
whiskers.
whiskers, and they
Right.
have the large eyes, and
Right.
their eyes are even one of the fun facts that I have about sea lions. One of my favorite things is they have kind of a very similar membrane to cats,
Oh.
for helping to see in at night in dark.
Oh,
And
interesting.
when
Oh,
they're
wow.
diving, especially, it's helpful underwater diving and
Sure.
seeing in very low light conditions.
Sure.
um I would say it really is a mixture. Like they just have very heightened, very I almost said high level, but very good olfactory organs, like I said, like smell, um the eyesight, and then the whiskers with the sensing vibrations and movement in the water. All that stuff works like extremely well.
Wow. Okay. And then speaking well, I think not predators, but let's get into predators. So what preys on our sea lion friend?
Yeah, so they only have two. Well, I shouldn't say that. They have
Well, we'll go with
two
natural predators, and then
natural
humans are always a
predators, right?
predator, we know.
Yep, yeah, they're yeah, exactly. Um, they have two natural predators,
Okay.
and that would be orcas, are
Right.
probably the biggest,
Yep.
and most common predator for sea lions, and then sharks. So especially great white sharks, as well as I know there have been some recordings of like mako fin sharks attacking sea
Really?
lions. Um,
Mako.
and I'm
Wow.
trying to think of any others. I can't off the top of my head, but I know like sharks and orcas essentially are the only two natural predators of the sea lion.
Right. And then unfortunately not so natural, you'll have disgruntled fishermen and boaters that will then shoot
Not so
them.
natural, unfortunately. Overfishing is the biggest predator of sea
Ah,
lions.
that makes
So
sense
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Besides
food
being
supply.
shot at by I was like it was a little disturbing to read about that, how like disgruntled fishermen or boaters will like shoot at them. It's like, really? That's what we're doing?
Yeah, it gets so bad in some parts, like a bit of an antecedent. But I got married in Bar Harbor, Maine, and while we were there, I went out on like a seal watching
Oh,
um,
cool.
expedition type thing, and they were kind of explaining how in that harbor for like 20 or 30 years the seals were just gone. They just weren't there at
Oh,
all, and it was because of a fisherman just killing them, because they, for some reason, they thought that the seals were eating all their lobster, was their reasoning.
what? What seal is
Lobster.
eating a
I don't
lobster?
think.
Come on.
Yeah,
Uh,
so that was used as like
Reason
a
to
thing to
we
make
get
it
rid of the
legal.
seals.
Right, yeah. Which got rid of, and they've rehabilitated to the point now that the seal population there is much more stable. It's awesome. It was cool to see all the seals out there. But yeah, I thought it just absolutely wild, the reasoning for that sort of thing too. Yeah.
Yeah, it must be those damn seals eating the lobsters. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
come on. Those seals are not eating the freaking lobster. Like, relax about it.
Right.
And then also like entanglement in nets. And I mean, I'm sure we've
Yeah.
all seen those videos where like my favorite is probably the one. I think it's like some Russian fishing ship where they pull out their big net and then out comes this big bull sea lion. And
Yeah,
my favorite
yeah.
is how they spray it with water. It's like, yes, spray the animal that lives in the water with water. That'll teach
With
him.
water, right?
Right. That and he's just kind of looking at him like, oh, I
He's like,
guess
"Do you
snack time
see
is
what
over.
I
I guess
am?"
I'll leave.
Like Yeah,
That's what.
the fishing thing too is simply because a lot of countries have such different regulations too.
Sure.
It's really tough to tackle that sort of problem just because you're dealing with so many different governments and so many different like
Right.
things like that. So it's pretty
Right.
tough.
Right. Yeah, and that's just so crazy to me. And then I was reading something too that they have a tendency to overheat, and so they'll, I think I've seen them fanning themselves, and then or they'll keep a fin in the water, and then will your girls do that? I'm sure, like during summertime when it gets a little
Yeah,
warm by
they're
you.
really good at thermoregulating themselves like that. Like you said before, kind of keeping a fin out of water to. It's because the capillaries in their skin are closer
Yes, that makes
in their
sense.
fins, and so sticking it out of the water, the sun is able to warm their blood up a bit quicker, as well as during the summer, keeping something in the water while they're on
Sure.
land or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, they definitely
Sure.
thermoregulate very well.
That's very, yeah, I mean, that's it seems like something very, like, intuitive. And then also for, like, their speed, I got that they can be at speeds up to 25, maybe even, like, 35 miles an hour, cruising around 11 miles an hour. And then really
Yeah,
quick
that sounds
before
right.
we wrap up here is just some fun facts and human encounters. So as my dad had mentioned earlier, Poncho, which, Dad, have you run into Poncho? You're in Cabo all the time.
Only when we go out there's a statue for Pancho in
Oh, he
Cabo.
has
I
a
can tell you
statue.
that he does have a statue by the marina.
Have you heard of
But I do
Poncho,
have,
Patrick?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Cabo
I have heard
the
of
Cabo
Pancho.
San
Yeah.
Lucas sea lion that is
yeah,
the fisherman thief, which
I
honestly,
have,
Yep.
I think I have a picture of him that he was, they come up behind the boats to try to get
yeah,
anything that
was
they
he?
can.
So was that him that was behind your boat?
Well, I'm not sure if it was the poncho, but it looked like the poncho. But he did have that cranial thing that you
Yeah,
talked
the
about.
sagittal crest, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we've all probably seen that famous video from 2013 that was shot in Cabo where Poncho the sea lion steals that professional fisherman's mahi mahi while he's showing it off. He just
Yep.
swipes it from him. And
Yeah.
apparently that was actually for a show called Chef on the Water. And then there's another video of Poncho about 6 years ago, just helping himself to this cooler on the back of these people's boat. He's just taking some fish and then he dropped one. And then you see him come back again and go back and check their cooler. And he kind of looks at them like,
Yeah.
excuse me, the cooler is
Well,
empty, you
yeah,
know?
it's
Just does
sort of
what he
like
wants.
Lassie. There are probably multiple ponchos.
And then I'll
Yeah.
in all these encounters and whatnot, there'll be the links to these episodes to these encounters will be in the description of the episode. But I will say in one of the videos with Poncho, this woman reaches out and pets him, which bothers me. It's kind of like, okay, don't pet him. Like he's already doing an unnatural behavior. Like he's coming to you for food when he should be hunting for food on himself.
Yeah.
I'm sure that probably is something you talk about. How look with your eyes,
Yeah.
touch with
Well,
your
it's
eyes,
easier.
don't touch with your hands.
Yeah, exactly what Guy said. It really just comes down to they know it's easy to just go get fish
Yeah. Go
off. It's
behind
so
the
much
boat.
easier than going to catch it. So why
Yeah,
not?
Oh no,
and they
I
just
get
It
it.
does
I
create
get it.
problems for sure.
Right, because you'll get. I mean, I'm sure there'll be that one person that's like, "Okay, Pancho, not today, buddy." And
Right.
then
Yeah.
Aquatic Park in San Francisco actually has become a notorious spot for sea lion attacks, which I actually remember a couple of these from a few
aquatic
years
park. You
ago.
said?
Yeah, right there where the Balcouth is and the C8 there,
Yeah,
right there,
they're
but down
attacking
near Deli
people.
Scare. Oh yeah, so 2006, a rogue
Hmm.
sea lion bit at least 14 people and chased 10 people. Fast forward to December 2017, January 2018. There were 4 bites within a month, 2 happening within 24 hours of each other at the same location. And actually, I remember those. And then Aquatic Park was actually shut down after these incidents for a brief period. And as for the cause of these attacks, scientists have a few speculations. One, it was a male sea lion that felt the swimmers were getting too close to the female sea lions, which completely makes sense. I mean, if you're
Right,
getting too close to
especially
the
during
babies,
breeding season, right?
right, and whatnot. And where this aquatic park is, it's kind of like its own little mini cove. So it's a safe. If I was a sea lion, feel like a safe space to be because it's
Right.
pretty well protected. Like sharks are not going to get in there.
Yeah.
You're well protected in there. So I get why they would be in there. And then two, it might be related to an overexposure of demosic acid, which I don't know if I'm saying that right, and maybe you heard of that, Patrick. It's a neurotoxin found in coastal California waters produced by a certain type of algae, and it actually becomes quite prolific when it's warm. And as Garrett Lavis, a behavioral neuroscientist at Oregon Health and Science University in Portland, he explained that this acid has a profound effect on the brain, including in experimental situations, aggression. And to quote Scott Lucas, a writer from San Francisco Magazine, this acid was also implicated by scientists in 2006 when that rogue sea lion began rampaging in Aquatic Park, accosting 14 swimmers. So yeah, and that was the largest. That was the largest recent instance of pinniped carnage. So these random 4 bites in 2017, 2018, not too bad. And then May 2017, I think we've all seen that famous video of the little girl being pulled off the dock. But that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
Stevenson
I've seen that one.
Fisherman's Wharf in British Columbia. The girl was fine. The sea lion was very curious. Again, scientists speculated that the sea lion probably thought it was, she had food because they, again, were in a dock situation where, and I'm sure he's obviously used to getting food there, and that he probably was, there were no injuries. He probably was surprised when she was, that she was so heavy when she landed on him, like, oh, wait a minute, this is not food. This is not actually what I wanted.
Yeah,
And
this isn't a
then,
fish.
right. And then June 2019, Pismo Beach, a sea lion bit a 13-year-old girl, and the same poisonous algae was suspected to be the cause of the incident, to quote the LA
Interesting.
Times. Yeah, so there seems to be some kind of correlation between these rogue sea lions and this this poisonous algae. And on the day of attack, yeah, officers. So actually, speaking, it kind of sounds like this poor sea lion sounds like a rabid raccoon, because on the day of the attack, officers observed a sea lion near the pier acting strangely. They said the animal appeared to be confused and was waddling around in what seemed to be a stupor and biting at sticks on the ground, as well as the metal base of a lifeguard tower, which, as we all know, that's not normal.
Right,
I'm
yeah,
no
that
sea
is
lion. I'm not
definitely
like
signs
you.
that something is wrong.
But like you see a sea lion gnawing on metal, like, come on, something's wrong. Something is wrong here.
Not good.
It's like the raccoon that got stuck in our garage that tried to eat its way out of the door.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I hadn't heard much about sea lion attacks, and I'd imagine if not something crazy like the acid, then it is just a lot of like people getting too comfortable being so close to forgetting that this is a wild animal. So then when stuff changes, like a breeding season, and the animal is not going to be so casual about you strolling in, that's when problems happen.
Right, exactly. And it doesn't help that they're so cute.
Cuddly,
I mean, you want to go hug them, and it's like, obviously it's a wild animal, but they're not like, it's not like a bear or
I don't
like
know if you guys have seen an 8-foot, 1,100-pound bull male, but nothing about him screams cuddly.
No. The babies and the females seem cuddly. The males, I'm like, you stay way over there, sir. But yeah, so actually this female, they caught a 160-pound adult female sea lion that was that was very lethargic, and she was captured around 10 and was transferred to care at a marine mammal center in Sausalito. And experts at the marine center confirmed she was suffering from the acid toxicosis, and which again is a toxin produced by algae. And they're not sure if this was the exact female that bit this little girl, this 13-year-old girl. And then probably on a funnier one, not a bite, in January 2020, Olympia, Washington, a fisherman got a video of 2 large, they look like male sea lions that hijacked a sailboat. You may have seen this video, Patrick. And they actually ended up sinking. They ended up, the link will be in the episode description. But they actually ended up sinking this sailboat, and apparently a third had tried to join the party as well. But by the time the third has got on, they were like, no, you can't come on here. And then the fishermen circled back, and you could see where the sailboat had sunk. So whoever's sailboat that was, sucks to be you. And actually this past July in La Jolla Cove, 2 sea lions chased beachgoers off the beach, which, to be fair, I mean, that's their beach. Come on, I get it. We all like being at the beach, but that is the sea lions' environment. And well, here's the problem. They were sleeping. So the sea lions were kind of just minding their own. People, okay, cool, people are here. They're sleeping on the beach. Unfortunately, in typical human fashion, a woman had to get way too close to take a picture of them.
Classic.
Right, exactly. And then, which of course caused them to wake up and, go postal, which again, fair enough, good for them. And there's there's someone got drone video footage of these 2 sea lions chasing these people off the beach, which honestly, I'm team sea lion. Good for you guys.
Yeah.
And to end on a positive note, this past September in Santa Cruz, a sea lion decided to join Mo the chocolate lab in his game of fetch. He actually swam over and was barking. And as his owner had one of those chocolates and would throw it into the water, the sea lion would go after it too. And not an aggressive chase, like a fun, like, oh, yeah, cool, we're playing a game. So that was a happier note. But
that's awesome.
Sea lion bites are not pretty. There's one of the links. Some guy in Oregon got bit by one and actually had like a surgical drain. They're not fun. They're not pretty. Again,
definitely not.
Takeaway here. It's still a wild animal. They're cute, but it's still a wild animal. Give them their space and their room. And then really quick before we wrap up here, Patrick, their conservation status, if you know anything about that.
Yeah. So their official status, and just I guess what I'll speak on today, is they are of the least concern. And that is due in a lot to the Marine Wildlife Act that was passed however many years ago. Most of the breeding stocks they believe to be at or near capacity, actually.
Oh, great.
That's why you have so
awesome.
many problems on Pier 39 with all of them on the docks and stuff. So yeah, and it's a great news because it wasn't always like that, and
No.
very shortly ago it was not like that. So it's great to see that, and hopefully we can keep that way, and keep doing things to help that. So
Right.
Very cool.
Fantastic. Perfect.
Well,
Well, thank you
thank
so
you
much,
very much,
Patrick.
Patrick,
We're
for
going
your
to
time.
thanks for
wrap
having me. It was
up
a ton
here.
of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, we
Yes.
can look forward to having you back on the show again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this questions for Patrick, hit us up, justanimalspod@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great evening or morning wherever you are in the world.
Adios.
Okay, bye.